Are you ready?
Let's go.
Now circling in the neutral zone.
Here's the pitch on the way. 36 yards for the win.
This.
Here comes a big chance. The shot
is
this the dagger?
The neutral zone.
This is as good as it gets.
The Neutral Zone is brought to you by the Ontario Para Network. Follow them online at onpara.ca.
Now, here's your host, two-time Paralympian, Brock Richardson.
What's going on? It's time for another edition of The Neutral Zone. I am indeed your host, Brock Richardson, and I have to tell you that today is going to be a very interesting show. I will tell you another secret in that we pre-recorded our interview with our guest today, which I'll tell you a little bit more about in a minute. But we got on a topic because I don't want to get hate mail about the conversation that we're going to be having or tweets. So I got a coach's perspective, and so today's going to be a spicy show. But before I tell you what's coming up on today's show, Josh, did you learn something about the baseball playoffs this week that you may not have known last week?
You would bring this up. Yes, I did, in fact, come to the realization that I may have said something kind of dumb on our last show. I pointed out that the current round of the baseball playoffs, as we record this, features teams from the same division. Well, that would make sense since it's the divisional round of the playoffs. It was not a good day for me last week. What can I say?
It happens to the best of us.
I was clearly tired or something. But yes, I was quite enthralled by the fact that you know, the NL East was playing the NL East and the AL East was playing the AL East, and it never even dawned on me that that's what round you're in, smart guy.
Very funny. Josh actually said to me the other day offline, he said, you know, if you're looking for something a little bit punchy or fun to start the show, you can pick on me about this fact. So I took him up on it and said, all right, I'll pick on him about
I don't
the
open
fact.
myself up often, so why not?
Coming up on today's show, we speak with Tiffany Gaudette, who is going to be telling us about her involvement with Boccia as she gets ready to take Team Ontario to the National Championships in November, which happens to be in Ottawa. So it's going to be a homecoming for the Ontario team as well. And she does tell us about the fact that it's their biggest team that they've sent in quite some time. We're also going to be discussing whether confidence in sports is key and how critical that is. And so we'll be discussing that a bit later on in the program. And I'll give you the jumping board or jumping board that we're going to be using for that conversation coming up in a little bit on the program. I'm joined by Claire Buchanan and Josh Watson. Here come your headlines.
Neutral Zone headlines.
The Ontario Para Network congratulates the Twin City Spinners for their gold medal finish at the 4th annual Wolverine Invitational. The final score of the gold medal game was Spinners 63 and the Warhawks 56.
Rafael Nadal, the Spanish tennis player, is retiring from professional tennis. Rafa has 22 Grand Slam men's singles titles to his name, along with spending 209 weeks as the world's number one ranked male tennis player, and features 81 consecutive victories on clay courts, which is probably the hardest court to play on when it comes to tennis. So on behalf of everyone here at the Neutral Zone, congratulations, Mr. Nadal, on a fantastic career, and enjoy your retirement.
Former Toronto Raptor Danny Green has decided to retire from basketball. Danny is one of only 4 players to win 3 NBA titles, and of course with 3 different teams, and of course he did that with the Toronto Raptors in 2019. I loved Danny Green. I thought that Danny Green just was that extra piece that the Toronto Raptors needed. He came over with Kawhi Leonard in that trade in that year, so I think he was part of the reason why the Toronto Raptors won the championship. I know people want to put it on Kawhi Leonard, but I'll give a secondary shout out to Danny Green as well. Those are your headlines for this week. If you want to get a hold of us on social media, here's how you can do that.
And welcome back to the Neutral Zone broadcast booth.
Play ball!
We're set to get this bowl game underway. The first pitch is brought to you by Brock Richardson's X account at Neutral Zone BR. Pitch and a strike. Hey, gang, why not strike up a chat with Claire Buchanan from the Neutral Zone? Find her on X at Neutral Zone CB. There's a swing of the chopper out to second base, right at Claire as she picks up the ball, throws it over to the first base for a routine play.
Out!
And fans, there's nothing routine about connecting with Cam and Josh from the Neutral Zone at Neutral Zone Cam J and at J Watson 200. And the Neutral Zone is brought to you by the Ontario Para Network. Connect with them at ON Para Network. Follow them online at onpara.ca. Now that's a winning combination.
We are pleased to be joined by Tiffany Gaudette, who is a para-athlete as well as now a boccia coach. And so we're going to be delving into different avenues in the interview. Tiffany, it's so nice to have you on the program.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's really exciting to be here and to do this interview with you both.
If you can, Tiffany, can you start by talking to us a little bit about your sporting background and history with sport?
Sure. So I got involved with cruiser sports shortly after acquiring my spinal cord injury. I'd really never participated in sports before and was looking for like a bridge after rehabilitation to continue therapy. And I thought sport and recreation was probably one of the best routes to go. I started off with doing wheelchair racing, which brought me to a competition where I found my sport of choice, which is athletics throws. And I throw discus, javelin, and shot put for the F56 category. And I've had a chance to travel a little bit international with Team Canada once and to be classified, and as well compete for Team Ontario at nationals since 2016.
And it feels like we're jumping like from one end of your life to the most recent end of your life with this question. But how did you become involved with Boccia and then ultimately becoming a coach?
I got involved first through Cruiser Sports Multi-Sports program. I was volunteering for that and worked my way into the director's position. We had an athlete that wanted to participate in Boccia, but Cruiser's program for Boccia at that point was non-existent. I was asked if I would be interested in starting up from a recreation standpoint, and I sort of just like dived in. And then when OCPSA found out that I was starting to run that program, they took interest in me and provided coaching courses and a lot of support so that I could begin that coaching pathway to where I am now.
And there's a grant available for athletes and coaches through Petro-Canada. As I understand it, you were among a number of coaches and athletes that received that grant along with your athlete, Carter. He is a boccia athlete. We're just wondering if you can tell us a little bit about more about that grant and how you came to be selected.
Sure. This is actually the second year that I've been selected with Carter for this grant. I feel just so fortunate for the outstanding support that Boccia Canada has provided. I was nominated by Mario or put in through Boccia Canada for this grant, and they seen both my potential and Carter's potential as a duo for this grant, and it's being utilized to help Carter with his development. So that's I helped him with the purchase of his ramp and do extra coaching like on the side when if he feels the need for it, and help pay for facilities for that. And as well, I'm hoping that the rest of the funds can be utilized to travel with Carter if he decides to do any international competitions or travel competitions, to help with like my development, and as well just to help become the best coach I can be for him. It also helps pay for some of the development that I plan on doing. I'm working on my NCCP competitive development pathway. So it's really great anytime that you can receive a little bit of funding to help you, with those credentials.
For me, we were talking about this a little bit before we hit the record button, and I mentioned to you that I've known Carter since he was, approximately about 4 years old when he came to the multi-sport program. And, Kathy Ludwig, who ran that program, who's been on the neutral zone, not necessarily in this iteration, but she's been on other iterations of the program. She said to me very quickly that, Carter would be a very good boccia athlete because he loves chess, and boccia is very similar to chess. And so I really got to watch Carter grow while I ran the multi-sport program among some other people. But Carter has not only grown, physically through life and also in sport, but he's grown tremendously in the game of bocce. This year, he won his first provincial championship, and that was a real thrill for me because I have seen him, come from the bottom and work his way up. Can you talk a little bit for us as his coach about the growth that you've seen?
Well, it just so happens that Carter is that athlete that I started the Cruisers Boccia program for. He was brought to me at the ripe age of 8, and just so eager to play. And he, started out with very basic equipment, really showed potential then, and has really put a lot of dedication into boccia, not only by like watching like, multiple of like his BC3 competitors, but just keeping up on strategy, seeking out as much information as he can, and just really looking at all aspects of the game. He really is able to step outside and sort of see the game from each box being played, his opponent and his, and really know what he needs to pull off, and then is able to also put the dedication and the practice into it. Carter practices multiple times a week for several hours, and I think just his determination and his dedication to the sport is why he's been so successful. And also his openness, not only to work with myself as a coach, but other coaches that are available to him at the provincial and Canadian level. And he is just so coachable and approachable, but then as well seeks out um, and asks questions when he's not too sure, or when he wants to find out more information, and really be able to guide his own learning, which is really great to have in an athlete because you don't always see that. And he just really is dedicated to his goals, making sure he's on top of it so that he can be the best player he can be.
He's quite a guy. I've had a chance to be a spectator when he's competed a couple of times. It's a lot of fun to watch him. Team Ontario has recently been announced, and it was decided that you were going to be one of the coaches. Can you talk to us a little bit about what it's like to represent your province as a coach?
This makes me so proud to be able to represent Ontario at this level, to be selected and to be trusted with what I consider like a really big responsibility, and just being able to build trust with the athletes, and, promote them to be the best athlete they can be, and just to enjoy the experience, enjoy the game that they love playing, and that always comes first, like their health, mental health, and that. So just being able to promote that as well, and the same, have align with the same values with what OCPSA is trying to promote is really great, because we, all of us coaches, seem on the same page, and I'm just so fortunate that I've been given this opportunity now for the fourth year. And we have one of the largest teams this year, so it's going to be an amazing experience from all aspects.
When there's three coaches for you guys this year, how do you guys divide the roles of who does what, or does everybody just kind of pitch in and say it's all for one, and we're doing this for the team? Are there specific roles that you guys say, okay, I'll do this, you do that, you do that?
So it sort of seems to fit with the three members that we have. We are a very cohesive team. We sort of know exactly what our skill base is, and we do talk everything out as a team and choose what roles that we're going to do based upon our strengths. And when it comes to working with athletes, it's an all coach, all athlete approach. We all work with all athletes just as they work with all of us coaches. Athletes do have that decision that if there's a preference of coaching, of course, anybody can feel a little more comfortable with one. So they do have the option to put in a suggestion to which coach they would like assisting them on court if that opportunity is given. But all of us work together as a team to provide the best coaching for this team. And we all work as a cohesive unit in decisions in that so that we can be really effective in that team approach.
Can you delve into details? We talked a little bit about Carter. Can you delve into a little more details on the athletes who will be representing Team Ontario? And it happens to be that they're going to be representing in their home province of Ontario, as the national championships are in Ontario, in Ottawa, in just a few short weeks in November. Can you talk a little bit about the team as a whole and how they're shaping up to represent?
Sure. We actually just had our first, our training camp, so that everybody could come together, do a little bit of training, so that the team could meet each other. We actually have, as I said before, one of the largest teams that Ontario is sending to our nationals of 14 athletes. So it's pretty amazing with just a, a large amount of experience to newer players. We have our most experienced player, Lance Kreiderman, and who is a Paralympian, and Giovanni, who is another one of our BC4 athletes who is very well experienced, and Jim Davis as well, who bring a lot to the team. And then you have other mentors and leaders within the group, like Maggie Julian, and some of our BC3s are a little young, but they're still seasoned, like Carter himself, Nico and Josh, who are there. And then Bryce DeRoche that is new to the team and has put a lot of work. So, there's going to be a lot of different mentorship. We also have some new players to Boccia that have come in the past few seasons. Kyle Scott, who actually just did as well his first international stint, and Dominic, who are returning, Dominic Gomez. And they are what I like to call our mid-experience, where they may not be on the team as long as the other players, but they do bring a lot of experience just within the game, and a lot of leadership and skill as well. And then you have our newer players, as I said, Bryce De La Roche, Martha Sandoval Gustafson, who is actually one of Ontario's most decorated sports or parasport athletes. And then to Julian Caverly and Joe Radmore, who are a little bit newer to the sport, and Lisa Curry. So it's just amazing to see all these athletes and see where they've come from and where they're going. They are so talented, and each and every one of them are so dedicated to putting in the work and to representing Ontario, and are proud to do it as well, which is really, really great as a coach to see. There's a lot of excitement and a lot of buzz, which, going into a nationals, you want that sort of energy going in so that everybody can be as successful as they can be, and to just cheer on each other and support each other.
It sounds like a really, really amazing team. I'm looking forward to seeing how they do. One more topic from me. Recently, you were named as one of 18 women to be part of a mentorship program. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So, one of my goals that I have sort of put down over the past year is I want to be one of the first women in Canada to complete the Boccia or competitive development certification through NCCP. In doing that, it is like a large feat to experience. I've done a lot of different courses. Part of that is needing the mentorship of other coaches, not even just within my sport, but other sports, so that I can bring that back to be the best coach for my athletes. So I applied for this women's mentorship program and got accepted. And one of the coaches that get to work with some of the most experienced high performance women coaches in Canada across Olympic and Paralympic sport. And I'm just really excited for the opportunity. I'm excited to have that mentorship and to be selected for the program, and also be able to utilize that to get through the last three modules that I need to, because boccia is quite a different sport from any of the other ones. It doesn't really follow, like, the performance planning or that other athletes do. It's very, very specific to the sport and to each athlete. Like, there is no cookie cutter for it. So just being able to get that mentorship through that, it will be great, so that I can move along with my goal and again acquire some more skills to be a better high performance coach.
One of the things that you said that I want to sort of pull on a little bit here is you mentioned that, some of the athletes went to an international event. When you look at that and you see that as, an advantage, what do you see specifically that, Kyle can bring back to nationals? Nationals is a big deal, but the international stage is on another level. And yes, that particular event was specifically for up and coming. But what experience do you think they can bring back to nationals because they've been on the international stage?
I think they can bring back like several things. I know one of the first things that I can think of is just the difference of what it's like to compete at an international tournament. You don't always get to see the same athletes. It's different athletes that you may not know their style of play or any of that. You may not see any footage of them playing. And it can be quite different, even just from a mental aspect of, a little bit of pressure when a little bit more pressure when you're going on that international stage, because you're representing not just your province or your region, you're representing your country. And I think one of the things that Kyle can bring back to the team is just that knowledge and experience, and being what he was able to take away from the tournament, and the highs and the lows of what it can be like to be an athlete and perform at your best, not perform at your best, to win, to not win, and bring that back to the team and sort of help support them through their highs and lows while they compete at nationals.
You mentioned part of Team Ontario is going to include Joe Radmore and Martha Sandoval Gustafson. You and I know Martha through throwing, of course. And so I know Joe a little bit just from different athletic events as well. I'm wondering, even though it's not boccia specific, do you think they bring the same sort of qualities, given that they've competed internationally in another sport?
I believe they will. Like, they have played at the highest level that you can play in their sports, and have so much experience. And, just themselves, they'll know what it's like to have those highs and lows, how to be able to, I guess, do that internal combat with, like, your emotions and regulating them, and what it can feel like if you lose or like win, and being able to regulate that excitement or being down and sort of even it out and go into your next game or your next end, or go into team play or pairs play, and really be able to just see it as a fresh start and a new time to put out your skills and to not look back at the rest of the competition, and to look forward and use those skills that you know that you can do, and just to pull off some amazing things or learn some amazing things too.
I don't often do this. We're going to have a discussion as a panel in a couple of minutes on the podcast about this very thing, but you're a coach, and I heard this information from a coach, and I'm just curious of your thoughts. Kristen Collins from Newfoundland and Labrador, she participated at this international event, and I texted one of the coaches and I said, Kristen Collins at this Rising Star event, and with a puzzled face because she's been to the Paralympic Games, and they responded back to me and they said, well, it's because we're trying to build back a little bit of confidence. When you look at that and understand that as being the response that I was given as a coach, how important is it to build up confidence going into whatever event, whether it's nationals, international events, when you've already been at the biggest stage in the world, but yet you're coming back and they're saying, we're going to send you here because we believe in you and we believe that this will help build your confidence. For you, how important is confidence in
Confidence
sport?
is perhaps like just as important as any of the skills in that. If you don't have confidence in your ability to play, in your ability to do what you to play your game that it's not going to end very well. Like there's a lot of strategy. You're having to battle emotions. And when your brain and body are connected and you can't regulate one, it's really hard to do both. So I think, cooling it down, pulling back, and just starting, maybe not all the way at the bottom, but, rebuilding some of that confidence is really important, because, like, just as much as a physical game, a strategical game, it's also a mental game. And when mentally, your confidence is down in that, it really can affect how you play, because, if you're sitting there telling yourself you might be able to pull off that shot, you're going to have really different results if you have the confidence there to say, I can pull off this shot. And I even watching Callie in that competition, Kristen had some amazing shots and she should be proud of herself. And I really hope that, her confidence is rebuilt, because she had some shots within some of those games, especially the teams that I saw, that really, really were some key shots to the game.
There is also that line of, and I'm taking nothing away from the level of competition at this event. Do not come at me and hate me with this remark. But there is that level of, when you talk to an athlete who's been at the biggest stage in the world and you say, hey, we're going to send you to this event to build your confidence, there is that level of, you have to make sure that the athlete understands this is a positive. This isn't a negative. This isn't something where we're going to, poop on you. I could use another word, but I'm not going to. This is for the better. How hard are those conversations as a coach when you're like, I'm doing something for the better of you, but I have to walk the line as well in order not to possibly damage your confidence that much further?
I think it can be really rough. Sometimes as an athlete and coach, you can be at a crossroads of really not knowing what to do. And I think it makes it a little easier when you can have those open discussions with an athlete and them really hear you, but also them be very open and trusting to, listen to what you're saying and take it in, and to be able to say, okay, you know what, I think you're right, and I think it's worth a try. And I think, in this case, what I seen, I didn't get to watch much of like the individual play, but the team play, you had somebody that could go in there and like communicate very well, and use their experience and their mentorship to guide two younger players. I know Olivia was like not no stranger to doing international competition, but to be able to work together with just that team and Kyle, like who is the new person of the team for his international experience, it would have been really great for Kristen to be able to bring that experience being to a Paralympics game to help those athletes and sort of like work as a team to work through the competition.
Well, you just got a teaser of what we're going to talk about over the next 35 minutes or so on the podcast. And I'm going to not allow Josh to respond right now because he'll respond in a couple of minutes. But I just wanted a coach's perspective so that people didn't come at me and say, you guys are just talking about it as athletes and blah, blah, blah. Because I have some things to say, but I think also hearing from a coach's perspective and also seeing the result at the end of it, I kind of get it a little bit more, and maybe my ego might have told me in the moment, if that was me, I would have been throwing a chair possibly and going, you're sending me where and what now? So good on Kristen and the coaching staff for being able to sell that in a positive way, because I think she will look at that and be forever grateful because she can look at not one but two medals. So
well, and if you look at it, Brock, too, like I'm not as seasoned. I'm not a Paralympian like you are. Like I've worked my way up to bringing medals home from nationals for Team Ontario, and like I look at all those opportunities, even from regionals, even from like my practices, and that it doesn't really matter the level of play as long as I'm getting in. I'm getting to compete. I'm getting to compete against maybe something a little bit more than that is offered in my province or like at the regional competition. So, I know myself as an athlete, any chance to be able to compete and to actually compete in, a setting where you have like some competition that makes you think outside the box and knows like where, like, teaches you where you have to play. It can be really great. So that you're not sitting stagnant and you're still getting out there and competing at, different levels.
I'm gonna just say this because if I don't, then I'll be mad at myself. I think for me, one of my biggest regrets over my career and looking back on it now, I wish that I handled it a lot differently. But you spoke about regionals, and I finished last at a regional prior to a Paralympic Games, and I walked up and I took the ribbon and I was like, I don't want this. I'm like, I didn't say I don't want it, but you could tell on my face I didn't want it. And my father, who was my sport assistant, tapped his hand on my shoulder and said, this is not how we're going to be. And I'm here to tell you, it was a long drive back from London, Ontario to Brampton when that was the reaction. But it's something that I look back on and I think, man, I wish I kind of approached that a little bit differently, because what you're saying is 100% true. It's the building, it's the learning, it's the doing all of those things. And I think that in this case, in the story we're talking about, I think now that it's all said and done, I think 2 medals on the wall. And even if there wasn't, I think, you're looking at that and saying, yeah, I think I learned something positive. And I also just want to put it out there in case I forget to do this later on. The team had like 3 hours of practice together and they won a silver medal. Like, let that sink in for a second. And like, that's not a slouch on the competition. That's not anything like that. It's just when you gel together, it doesn't take very long for a team to gel together, and I think that was the example that you saw there. And Kyle had a really heartfelt message on social media to the coaches and things like that, and that's somebody that will forever appreciate an experience like that, whether he goes to another international competition or not. That will be forever indebted. Tiff, thanks so much for spending a half an hour with us, and really appreciate the insight on the last little bit of the show there.
Oh, no problem at all. Thank you so much for having me. And, Brock, it's never too late to come back and try a regional.
Oh, I've been there, done that. No, thank you. On that note, we're going to say goodbye to Tiff, and we appreciate it. And thank you so much.
Take care. Thank you.
The Neutral Zone is sponsored by the Ontario Para Network. Their focus on the growth and development of wheelchair basketball, tennis, and rugby in Ontario.
So recently, the World Boccia held a challenger event, which was held in Colombia. Canada brought home 3 medals, 2 bronze and 1 silver. One of the team members, Kristen Collins, was a part of this team, and she's also been a part of the national team scene. She, at this event, won a bronze medal and then, of course, the silver medal in team. And as I mentioned, she's been part of the senior national program, and she's made it to the Paralympic Games and had some success. The other parts of this team included Kyle Scott, who is a BC1 athlete who's up and coming, and Olivier Roy, who is recently new in the bocce class 2. For me, the purpose of this event, well, not for me, the purpose of this event is for rising stars in the sport and get a chance to get some international experience and be on the stage. These athletes only trained as a team together once they got to Colombia for a grand total of 3 hours, and they walked away with a silver medal, and very, very impressive indeed. Kristen Collins, as I mentioned, recently went to the Paralympic Games and has been a member of the senior national team for a little bit of time. I was told from one of the coaches that the reason they sent her was to build her confidence. I had trouble with this one because I'm like, development, rising star. Josh, you and I did the interview with Tiffany, as we just heard. She weighed in on some of her perspective, which quite honestly changed my perspective on it as well. What would you say about what Tiffany said about it, and then your own perspective? And you can do that in whichever order you want to.
Well, I do think that confidence is a huge factor in sports, and I'm sure we're going to get into that in a little bit. So, if you choose to send someone to an event in order to help them gain or regain their confidence, I personally don't see a problem with that as long as the athlete is a part of that decision and allows the coaching staff to do that on their behalf. Yeah, I think that can really help someone get recentered and refocused, and I think it allows maybe a little bit of pressure to be taken off so that they can then come back to the form that they are known for.
Claire, your thoughts on this particular, how do you feel about the intention of an event being for rising stars, but then you're sending somebody that's been to a couple of international events with the senior national team? Are you okay with this?
Yeah, why not? It's, I think, a good piece for the development of that athlete, of course, but the sport in general. You always want to take a chance and give the next generation of athletes those opportunities to have a taste at the international level. And yeah, I think like Josh said, if it's a decision that both the coaches and the athlete are on board for, why not? I don't see a negative impact in that situation.
Yeah, the only thing I think could be a negative is if the athlete isn't involved in the decision, then they might see it as a demotion. But otherwise, if the athlete understands, no, we're sending you here so that you can, get your feet firmly planted again and get your confidence back, and they're on board with it, then I don't think there's a problem.
I think that's very similar to if we look at, say, Major League Baseball or the NHL, where Sometimes you get called back down to, again, work on kind of the basic foundation stuff and get some confidence back, and then get back onto that path of being on the biggest stage. So it's, yes, when you see athletes being kind of quote unquote demoted, or kind of put back down a level, yeah, that in itself can be confidence crushing. So there's definitely got to be conversations on both sides, and an understanding of why they're making this decision, and how they see it benefiting them.
You guys and Tiffany has changed my mind, because Claire, what you just said about, Major League Baseball and other sports, going back down to the minor leagues is one that I didn't really think about in the moment. When I got the message back from one of the coaches, this was before, the medals had been won, the competition had just sort of got going, and I said to the coach, I said, really? I said, Kristen Collins going to this event? And the person replied back and said, yeah, she really needs to build her confidence. I think what you see more in amateur sports, and I'm only speaking about this from experience that I've had. I'm not talking specifically for Kristen, because I have no concept to know what conversations were had. I think what happens in amateur sports is it is more of a conversation that is had, and it is more of a discussion of like, hey, you're really struggling. We're going to do this to benefit you, because confidence is, and we're going to talk about this in just a second, but confidence is really fragile, and you're walking a line to which that you really have to be careful with. I think what you see in the professional leagues is athletes who say, oh no, you're not sending me down there, I'm not going. And then when they do get sent down there, they're just like, what's going on? And they're throwing a fit, and they're put themselves, they don't put themselves into it. I think, Claire, you see more of the amateur athlete understand that they don't have as much clout as the major leagues do to be able to say, no, I'm not doing this, period, full stop.
Look at a ball player who's drafted number one, makes it through camp, maybe because of an injury or whatever, and then gets sent back down after 10 games. Like, that can go one of two ways. That can either go really, really positively, if it's like, you're good, you just need to do this for a bit, or it can go really badly if they don't understand why they're being sent back. They think they've made it, and then all of a sudden they get sent home.
Yeah, and that's where the clarification has to come from the coaching staff of, especially a player like you're mentioning, just getting drafted and seems to be one of the better players and higher potential. It's, those players are also really young. They're still growing and
maturing
outside of sports, still working on their confidence, I'm sure. So they have to have a kind of a almost wake up call of, you got to trust the process. If you want to have if you want to have longevity in your career, you really have to pay attention and pay attention to the details. And it's a process. So I think it would be terrible for a coach to kind of spring it on an athlete, especially or especially through the media of what's happening. They have to make sure that they're putting the well-being of the athlete first, and again, communicating it properly.
The other thing too that I want to put out, and this is all part of my compartmentalizing this whole thing. Welcome to Brock Richardson's therapy session on this whole discussion.
Because oh no, we're in Brock Richardson's head right now.
That's dangerous. That's where exactly. That's where I am. But I look at this and I think, okay, the Paralympics is over. There is that moment of time where you're going through the Paralympic blues, you're going through the whole thing. Why not go to an event? It's not like you're missing, an event and they're sending you down instead of going to the Paralympic Games. She went there. She did that. She got to accomplish that. So I think it's different because you're taking her and saying, we want you to build your confidence, and you really can spend the time and pump the tires and say, listen, this is what we're doing. And now if I was Cesar, who is the head coach, and I'm going to try to get him on the podcast and have him have this conversation, what he should say to me is, Brock, shut up. She has 2 medals at this event. So I made the right decision. And if he does do that in his lovely broken English, and I say lovely because he worked so hard at it, but if he says that, there's not much I can say, because it is true. She did walk away with 2 medals, and I think it could have been more damaging if maybe she was at the bottom half or whatever, but you did exactly what you set out to do in this situation, Claire.
Yeah, and I mean, athletes have to take it day by day and really see it for what it is. Say they go to this competition and they don't do well. Okay. Well, are you going to quit? No. Well, what's the next step? Okay, let's back it up a little bit. And it's either going to work out or there's going to be a reality check. And when there's a reality check in sports, you go back to the drawing board and you say, okay, where do we start from now? And yes, confidence is a huge thing, but also you have to be realistic with yourself as well. There's going to be crap days in sports. That's the beauty of sports. Anyone can win on any given day if someone has a bad game or someone didn't prepare the right way. You have to take it with a grain of salt sometimes.
Absolutely. We have to, if let's take professional sports, for example. If we just ranked everybody for playoffs based on how they looked on paper, there'd be no reason to play any games because, this is the best team on paper, therefore they win the championship. Like, no.
The Leafs would have multiple cups right now.
There we go. There we go.
That was exactly what was in my head. I was like, I can think of about 4 or 5 times the Leafs should have won the cup as soon as they drafted Austin Matthews. Whenever that was, 2015, 2016, everybody shot it up, and then John Tavares showed up, and that shot it up again for another year. And we should have 3 or 4 cups. I wish sports would work on paper, but sadly it does not.
It does not.
I look at the situation and I'm going to do it because I have confidence that we are able to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs on this podcast. I look at someone like Easton Cowan, who is a London Knights hockey player and is currently still playing with London. That guy came up and wanted to prove something. He was their first round pick. He was the guy that they wanted to see develop. But what I saw in the preseason from Easton Cowan was a guy who wasn't quite ready there yet. He just won a championship with London the year before. Can go back and do it again because they've got 4 guys returning from camp and they can do it again. So that is that whole building of the confidence. I wouldn't want to see Easton Cowan come up here and totally, blow up. And I'm not suggesting he would have, but I think for another year he will have more success in the Ontario Hockey League, Josh. And I think that's the biggest key to all this.
Yeah, and there's a really great example because he's in a position where he's too young to go to the AHL, which might have been the next step for him. But he's basically dominating the junior league. So what do? He's not good enough to be on the big club, which is where he would have to go based on his age. But he's almost too good to be in junior, and he's not old enough to go in the league you want him to be in. So you have to sit that player down and you have to say, listen, kid, you had a great camp. We're very impressed with you. But these are things you need to work on. And we would normally put you here, but we can't do that. So we're going to put you here. And you work on these things. And you go be dominant in the OHL. And come back to camp next year and fight for that spot again. And you might get it.
Is there a line, though, Claire, when you look at exactly what Josh just said? Is there a line because he has nowhere to go except for maybe on the NHL club, but he's probably not matured enough to do that? He can't go on the the Marlies because of age. Is there a fear of, okay, but his ego might get built if all he's doing is lighting up the Ontario Hockey League? Is that a concern or not?
It would be if I'm sure that he is tapping into other ways to push himself, especially the level that he's at. I'm sure he has already trainers and stuff in his corner that outside of wherever he's playing right now is pushing him and making sure that he is getting ready to move on to these next levels of hockey. But we're at a time right now where these kids have all the support they need around them. And if they aren't being pushed hard enough, they're going to find someone to push them. And it's those players that in the off season or in situations like this, they reach out and they tap into those better players. We saw Mitch Marner competing and training with Connor McDavid and people like that over the summer. So it's Cale Makar as well. So I'm sure he has people pushing him around, pushing him.
Josh, the other side of this too, though, is he's probably got the best junior hockey coach in the world in Dale Hunter. Dale Hunter is not going to let this guy, let his ego just blow up, because Dale Hunter's been at the NHL level, not as successful as the junior level coach, but you've probably got the best situation in London that you could have, because Dale Hunter has been there, done that, got the t-shirt, got 2, possibly even 3 t-shirts.
Oh, exactly. If anybody is going to help this kid, I think it is the Hunters, because I'm sure there's more than one of them involved with that organization, but they certainly are in a position where they can basically sit Easton down and say, okay, kid, you've had a taste of it. You know what it's like. What were your impressions? What do they want you to work on? Okay, they want you to work on these things. That's great. Those are the situations we're going to put you in here on this team. You're going to be put in a leadership position. You're going to be put in a goal scoring position. And if they want you to skate faster, well, guess what? You're going to skate. And if they want you to put on muscle, guess what? You're headed to the weight room. We are going to do what we need to do to get you ready for your next opportunity.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I also think in this case, if this situation is done appropriately, you could almost use it as an AHL sort of scenario where the Leafs are very involved in what London is doing. This is not a situation where the coach is trying to prove themselves for another level. He had that crack at the other level, and he said, "Nah, I'm gonna go back to junior, and I'm gonna be
the king of the small pond."
Yeah, so I think for the Leafs situation too, like they're able to go to the Hunter brothers and say, "Can we have a talk? What is Easton doing? What's happening? What's going on?" Where it's not going to be that ego coach that's going to sit there and say, "No, I don't want to talk to you because I'm building a championship team and that's what I'm doing." Because if you look up at Budweiser Gardens, which is no longer named Budweiser Gardens, but if you look up at those Raptors, they have many championships. Dale and the Hunter boys don't need another championship, Claire.
I mean, you can't have enough championships, can you?
Of course not.
No.
On the other hand, as well, I think you're going to find that the Leafs are also going to hear from the Hunters, like, hey, this kid's too big for his britches. What do you want us to do? And here's what we want to do. And the Leafs will go yay or nay.
Exactly. There's conversation about it, no doubt. Like there's a plan for it, and they know what they want. And if the kid doesn't deliver it, I mean, then he's not a good fit. So he either puts in the work or he doesn't,
And all of this conversation started with a parasport athlete going down to a smaller event and that's how that happened. Josh, you just picked up a fly swatter. Do you wish to hit me, or what was the deal with that?
There's a fly that's buzzing around my head that I'm trying to discreetly get rid of as we record here, and it's not working very well. So
I don't often look at the two of the panelists, but I happened to flip over and Josh had just picked up a fly swatter as I was speaking. So I was like, oh, is there something Josh, proverbially would like to do right now? Or
yeah. No, you're fine. You're fine.
Fair enough. We've only got 7 minutes left. So what do you guys want to talk about? Danny Green or the MLB? Where do you guys want to go?
I'm good either way. I definitely have, I think, a similar opinion about Danny Green as you do, Brock, as you alluded to in your headline. I don't think he gets enough credit for what he did here in Toronto that year. He's, in my opinion, one of the better utility players that what has been in the NBA. The guy can really do anything, and then he doesn't bring any drama to the team. He's just cool, calm, collected, and plays defense. Great shooter. He's one of those guys you can really put on any team that's really fighting for a championship, and he's going to help you get there.
Yeah, there's a reason that the guy has 3 championships with 3 different teams. And there's a reason that the Raptors went out and got him. It's because he'd won championships on, at that time, 2 other teams. So they knew that there's something about him that makes him a winner. And that's what they obviously felt that they wanted, either on their court or at the very least in the room.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see the same thing similar with Klay Thompson. He's been with Golden State for so long, but now he's in Dallas. And they have a true starting big 3 there now. So I think Klay can be that missing piece, just like Danny Green was for Dallas.
Let's hope so.
I think, too, the thing with Danny Green is, like, a guy like that has nothing to prove. Like, he has been there, done that. He's got 3 championships with 3 different teams. He's done it, and it's not. And I'm gonna bring it up, and you guys are probably gonna laugh, and so is the audience. It's not a Tom Brady situation where it's like, why are you still here? Like, you've won a ridiculous amount of championships. Like what are you here to prove? And do I hear the argument of, like, it's for the love of the game? Yes, I do. But at a certain point, you have to bow out and say, I've done what I'm gonna do, Josh. And I think Danny Green did it at the perfect time, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. He looked at it and he said, okay, what else do I have to prove? What else do I want to achieve in this game? I've done everything I want to do. And I think when you have someone who is successful, I think then what it comes down to is it has to come down to love of the game. That's the only reason you keep getting yourself up at whatever hour of the day and training and trying to fit your life around your training schedule and your season and everything else. Because I mean, I don't have a lot of experience with it, but I know you do, Claire. It controls your life when you're that level of athlete.
It really does. Everything revolves around it, and it's everything in one little orbit. It consumes you sometimes. That's for sure.
Quick thought on the MLB playoffs. Am I the only one that's, like, half rooting for a New York Mets, New York Yankees World Series? Because that would be something to behold. I'm also rooting for the Tigers, who basically said, we're waving the flag and we're done. And now they're possibly, by the time this releases, they could be in the American League Championship Series. Thoughts from you guys? Like, what do we say overall? I'll let either of you go first.
I personally would like to have seen the Yankees put out, but that hasn't happened. I'm not necessarily on the side of an underdog, but I just don't enjoy watching the Yankees win year after year after year. And to be fair, they haven't won for a couple of years, which is fine. But they're still the big bad Yankees. If I have to see a New York team there, I'd like it to be the Mets. I was going to call them the Miracle Mets, but that's a different Mets team from possibly before I was around, which is surprising. But for me, I wouldn't mind seeing the Tigers do it. I think that would be fun because I heard their starting rotation described as Tarek Skubal and then a dog's breakfast. So it's been fascinating to watch pretty much everybody from starters to relievers get brought in at different points of different games. It's almost like they have no starting staff whatsoever, and it's kind of cool to watch. But at the same time, I don't mind watching the Cleveland Guardians now that they've had a name change, and I don't have to listen to Native American chants or whatever you want to call them, like we listen to when Atlanta plays, for example. So, I mean, for me, I think it's going to be the Dodgers out of the National League. Out of the American League, it's probably going to be the Yankees, but that'll be a disappointment in my mind.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the Yankees is one team that has too many championships. I think that they can go a little bit longer without another one. The Detroit Tigers have been exciting to watch. And I think it was the Montreal Canadiens this week that I saw a video from one of their practices, and
Claire, did you have to bring up the Montreal Canadiens? Like, really?
Hold on.
There's a reason. Their
coach said at the end of practice, "Why not us? Why not now?" And I think Detroit has that same attitude, and I love it. I love that attitude where everyone, including almost their record, counted them out, literally counted them out of it. And said, nope, there's no way. And they're making it happen. So I will root for that every single time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just teasing you about the Montreal Canadiens because
it's a good mentality to have. I love it.
They beat the Maple Leafs on opening night, which pains me every time. But anyway, I was talking to somebody that I'm close with, and I might not have the stat exactly, but he was saying about the fact that, since the All-Star break, like the Tigers went 33-10 or something, and like their manager just has to say, when people go, well, why did you do this and why did you do that, he literally has to go 33-10 since the All-Star break, shut up and let me do what I'm doing. And that's what's happening. And I think it's going to be a fascinating Game 5, which takes place on Saturday. So by the time you're hearing this, the result will be already out, but it's going to be a fascinating one for sure. That is the end of our program for this week. I would like to thank Claire Buchanan and Josh Watson. As always, I'd like to thank our technical producer, Mark Aflalo. Stay tuned for next week because you just never know what happens when you enter the neutral zone. Be safe, be well.
The Neutral Zone is brought to you by the Ontario Para Network. Connect with them at ON Para Network. Follow them online at onpara.ca. Now that's a winning combination.